Welcome back to the shop. Today I'm going to be doing a rundown of all of my different wood planes. I have them kind of separated into different classifications, and I'm going to talk about different features, uses, changes that Stanley made over the years, and it should be interesting if you like wood planes. So also, I finally bought a mic, so if you guys have watched my previous videos and notice a big difference in sound quality, please let me know that the mic is working. So we'll start with the largest planes. Stanley made 7 and 8, which are considered jointing planes. They are for making wood as straight as possible. The next ones are the 6 size. This one's a 606 because it's a Bedrock. This one's a number 6. They're considered 4 planes. A lot of people think that Stanley didn't actually need to make those. The 5 1/4, 5, and 5 1/2 are all considered jack planes. They're kind of a in between. The next categorization of the smaller planes, which would include a 1, which I don't have, 2, 3, 4, and 4 1/2. They're considered smoothing planes. So the jack plane is kind of meant to be the in-between that you could smooth with and you can joint with. It's just not quite as great at each individual task as a smoothing plane would be at smoothing, a jointing plane would be at jointing. So the number 5 is, I think, the most popular size. Used to be pretty much every shop and garage in the country had a number 5 in it. So a number 5 and number 4. As far as changes that have taken place over time, if you're buying planes to use them and not to collect them, if you're a collector, you don't need my advice. You probably know more about planes than I do. But as far as features that you're looking for to date a plane, the easiest is the short knob versus tall knob. Short knobs being older, tall knobs being newer. The adjustment nut being small, the adjustment nut being large. There's a whole bunch of small changes, but like that will easily separate old from new. Still not new, but antique from vintage, I guess we could go with. The oldest plane that I own is actually 2. It's the number 6 and the number 10. They're both type 6s. The difference, I think, after type 6, Stanley made the threads on the adjustment nut left-handed. So on these ones, if you push down, it brings the blade up. On all the newer ones, if you push down, it pushes the blade down. A little bit more convenient, a little bit more intuitive on the use. So I would say if you're going for users, you probably want to go newer than a Type 6. It's not that big of a deal. You want to stay away from the ones that do not have the lateral adjuster. This little lever right here will change the angle of the blade. Those are useful. You want those. And the most sought after planes for users and collectors is what they refer to as a sweetheart. It's the planes where you see that's not the right one. This one has the SW inside of a heart. The SW actually stands for Stanley Works, because originally what became Stanley was Stanley Rule and Level, and they merged with Stanley Works. And Stanley put that SW and the heart to remember and honor Stanley Works. Other features to look for are corrugated versus smooth. So as you can see the bottom of this one, It has all these machined lines into them. And this one doesn't. Smooth bottom versus corrugated bottom. Corrugateds are more sought after. Some people find it debatable on if they actually help alleviate friction or not. But either way, because it's an option that's a little less common, they're more collectible. And then the number 10 is a carriage maker's plane. It's basically a giant rabbet. A rabbet plane means that the blade cuts the entire width of the plane. So a normal rabbet would be like this bullnose 90. So you can make a rabbet joint. The number 40 is a scrub plane. It's for taking off large amounts of wood on rough timber. This is a 112 scraper plane. A lot of people say this is the best scraper Stanley ever made. This is a number 12 scraper. And then if you watched previous videos, you've seen the restoration of this 71.5. This is a 71. The difference being this bridge. They say that it's for better visibility to see when you're routering. This is a 180 rabbet plane, 45, part of a 45, it's missing some pieces. This one is a 48 and 148. These are both tongue and groove. This one set like this, you cut the groove, and then the fence spins around and moves over so that you can cut the tongue. On the 148, you just flip it around. One side cuts the groove, one side cuts the tongue. As far as block planes go, I've got an 18 and an 18 1/4, difference being an adjustable mouth versus non. A 65 that needs to be cleaned up. These are actually Miller's Falls. 07 is their designation. The Stanley version is a 140. I already mentioned the 90. This is a 78, another rabbet plane. This one has the option for fence compared to the 180, and it's a double decker, so you can move the blade further up so you can get closer to the edge of things. I think I covered all of those. So from 1 to 8 are considered bench planes. I'm missing a number 1 because they're super valuable and super rare. Other than that, I've got, I think, every number from 1 to 8. The only other ones that I would like to have that look like a bench plane that I'm familiar with is a 10 1/4 and a 10 1/2. I would also like to get a hold of a 62. 62 is a low angle block plane, which I think is about the same size as a number 5. The low angle ones are good for end grain. And my 5 1/2 is very badly wounded. It's been broken. I don't know if I'm going to be able to save that. I might do a restoration video on it and see if I can repair that crack. Might be smarter just to buy a new one. This 5 1/4 has been through a fire. Very sad. This is the newest plane that I own. You would not know it by looking at it. This one is a wartime plane. I think they consider it a wartime plane because, no, this would be post-war. This is 40, I think this is type 18, 1946 and 47. You can tell because this one has diagonal knurling. Doesn't come through on the video that good. There you go. And that was, I think, a one type feature. These ones, these three, are considered knuckle planes because of the type of lever cap they have. This one's a low angle. These Stanley equivalents of 140, these ones are skew angle, and this cheek can come off so that you're able to plane right up to the edge of something. You could also use it for making a rabbit if you're on the end of a piece of wood like that. So that one's probably the most versatile block plane that I think you can get. This one's also quite nice. Down here I've got a couple other block planes. This one is a 203, I think. Yeah, so it's 203 right there. This one's considerably smaller than these ones. It's much narrower. And I'm blanking out on what number these are. This one, the adjustment knob cracked. So I'm going to maybe braze that back on. I'm not sure what I'm going to do to repair that. This is another bull nose that's missing the cap. This is a number 7 that's cracked. This one's a number 6, and this one's a 606. Early version, I guess I should mention the Bedrocks. So the early Bedrocks still had round cheeks, just like the Baileys. The later ones, I want to say, they changed the designation from the same numbers they had. So you can find Bedrocks that were number 6, number 5, just like the Baileys. I want to say it was type 3 that they switched to the 606 designation, but it might have been type 3 where they went from the round cheeks to the square cheeks. I can't remember for sure. This one's kind of a mystery. The iron says Atlas tool, but I haven't been able to find really any information on Atlas tool made planes. This one's almost the same size as a Stanley number 2. It's like an 1/8 inch longer and pretty much the same width. So if anybody knows for sure what this plane is, I would appreciate the knowledge if you could let me know in the comments. These are the original knobs for that 71.5 that I restored. I haven't really done much to either of these, the 7 or 8. They were in about this condition when I got them. The 606 was very rusted when I got it. It was just surface rust. It wasn't deep or anything like that. It cleaned up really nicely. This one is a sweetheart. And these ones have all the features that a user would want to have. I think the post-war ones also, up until 67, had all of the features that you're going to want. I think after 67, people say the quality started going downhill. But yeah, you can see it's got, so really early ones have less comfortable handles. You can see how the shape right here, this part's thicker than on these, where this is thinner. You can get your hand in there more comfortably. This one you have to kick a finger out. So you get more comfortable handles. You get the bigger adjustment nut that turns the right direction. You get the taller knob that is just more convenient to hold on to. You get the frog adjustment screw down there, so you can adjust where in the mouth the blade sits. And you have adequately thick soles without them being overly thick. Some people think the Wartime ones were overly thick and unnecessarily heavy. But Wartime planes will still get the job done just fine. They made them cheaper. Well, like things like brass you couldn't really get during the war because they were using it for ammunition. Rosewood was harder to get, so they would have been, I think maybe on this one too, it would have been painted handles, not rosewood. There were years that had plastic adjustment knobs. Some of them didn't have Japanning, they had blue paint. Those are things to look for the wartime era. But really, they're all usable. The biggest thing you want to stay away from is the lack of a lateral adjustment lever. A lot of the other stuff, it's just kind of minor conveniences and comforts. Well, let's walk through some other ones. I guess I will talk about this one. This is the first plane that I ever purchased. It's a Stanley No. 5 Sweetheart, which I already mentioned. And it was in this condition when I got it. I don't think I ever used it. It sits on a shelf, collects dust. The only thing I did, it had like a wet red drop of something that spilled on it. I cleaned that off and I wiped it down. That's all I've done to that one. And it's in such good condition, still has a lot of the decal on it, that I don't want to risk messing it up. This is my user when I need a No. 5. This is the one I grab. It's not pretty, but it is very comfortable and it gets the job done well. The one that I did a restoration video on, this No. 5, it had belonged to a friend of mine who passed away, and it got left outside for a long time. Other than the rust from sitting outside, it was in really good condition. Like, it had never been abused, hadn't been dropped, hadn't been beat up. It was a really nice plane. You can still see a little bit of pitting from rust, but it doesn't affect the use. So, because that one's sentimental, it also just sits on a shelf right there. You can see the dust outline. The first Bedrock that I ever came across was a 604. It was in very poor condition. When I got it, the tote and knob were both replaced. I think I also replaced the adjustment nut because it was really gnarled up, really chewed up. It's a decent user now. The only plane I think that I have that has an example of one of the sole changes is you can see that there's a raised kind of curb around the front and the back. That's a feature of some of the newer eras of planes. Why is that so crooked? It just has to be. My No. 2 is also one that I've never used and is also a Sweetheart. The heart is very faint though. There, you can kind of make it out right there. It's got paint splatter on it and it's kind of dirty, but I can never bring myself to mess with it. Some people value finding planes in or keeping their planes in as found condition. And I think I kind of bought into that for a little while, but I think I've changed my mind. I think having your planes in the condition that you would keep them in as a craftsman is totally acceptable. So if you had a tool that you got overspray on, would you clean it off? If you would, then you clean it off of your tools and keep them in good maintained condition. So I'll probably end up doing a very gentle cleaning on my number 2 at some point. There you go. That is pretty much every plane that I own. At least everyone that I could track down. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.